Hi everyone. Welcome back to another silent moment. No voiceovers, no dialogues, only emotions, choices, and the weight of what remains unsaid. This is not just a story about money or betrayal. It's about guilt, forgiveness, and the quiet strength of Ly Tu Tieu. Watch closely. Every glance, every silence hides a storm inside. The morning unfolds in a slow, tender rhythm. In the small courtyard, Ly Tu Tieu scatters handfuls of grain for the chickens and doves, her eyes soft as she watches wings lift gently into the air. The humble space breathes peace, a stillness carved out of life's unrest. At the edge of the yard, the old canarium tree is heavy with fruit, green clusters hanging low, shimmering in the early sunlight. Into this calm steps Trang, her hurried footsteps carrying a sense of familiarity. Her smile breaks the silence, and suddenly the house feels brighter, warmer. The two women exchange words wrapped in sisterly warmth. Trang's curiosity about the fruits, about the meals that can be made from them, draws out Tu Tieu's patient explanations. Each sentence becomes a thread weaving them closer together. A simple suggestion, to gather the fruits together, emerges as the quiet beginning of an intimate journey. Trang's youthful energy blends with Tu Tieu's calm presence, and the moment becomes infused with serenity. Yet beneath this peace lingers a fragile premonition that such simplicity may only be the stillness before the storm. As the two women leave the courtyard with empty baskets in hand, heading toward the orchard, the image feels like the opening frame of a film, gentle, luminous, yet tinged with an unspoken unease. The path leading into the orchard stretched beneath the sunlight, the rustle of leaves whispering, as if hiding something yet to come. Tu Tieu and Trang had just reached the gate when a figure emerged. Allan. His face carried stern lines, every detail etched with experience and heavy thoughts. The air shifted instantly, stripped of the light-hearted purity from moments earlier. Trang faltered, her eyes a mixture of surprise and caution. Tu Tieu, cloaked in her usual calm, kept her steps slow, though inside her chest a quiet tension tightened. Allan did not need words. His presence alone bore enough weight. It felt like a silent trial, with the three of them poised on the fragile threshold between peace and unease. Trang lowered her head slightly, a small gesture tinged with embarrassment and uncertainty. Standing beside her, Tu Tieu sensed the air thickening. The fall of each leaf seemed suddenly heavy. Allan stepped forward, his shadow stretching long, overshadowing the small courtyard. The atmosphere tightened, emotions drawn taut like a string ready to snap. In the brightness of morning light, the scene took on an unexpected darkness. It was the moment that signaled the shift. The fragile calm of earlier was now being tested, and the story would no longer circle around simple things alone. The silence seemed frozen, broken only by the whisper of wind weaving through the old canopy. Tu Tieu stood in the middle, her eyes calm on the surface, but inside, emotions surged restlessly, unnamed yet overwhelming. Allan's presence stirred memories not yet buried, making her steps falter. Beside her, Trang's gaze wandered, caught in a whirlpool of curiosity, unease, and subtle confusion. In that suspended moment, all three felt drawn into an invisible current, where fragile safety could shatter at any instant. Allan did not move closer. He stood still, shoulders heavy, eyes fixed on the two as if wanting to speak yet restrained by silence. The short distance suddenly felt like an unbridgeable gulf. Tu Tieu clenched her hand tightly, trying to hide the trembling rising within. She felt torn, part of her yearning to retreat, another part urging her to advance, an endless tug-of-war inside her soul. Trang turned, catching a glimpse of resolve in Tu Tieu's eyes, yet also sensing an undertone of sorrow. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, spilling over their faces, painting a scene of stark contrasts. Light and shadow, closeness and distance, peace and unrest. It was a moment where each soul stood tested, where silence pressed down heavier than words, forcing them to confront the truths within themselves. The air remained heavy, each passing minute stretched into what felt like eternity. Tu Tieu turned slightly, her gaze never leaving Allan, yet between them stood a wall that could not be seen, only felt. Trang watched quietly, sensing the distance forming, a sudden unease rising in her chest. No words were spoken, but the silence resounded louder than anything they could have said. Every breath, every heartbeat carried the weight of caution. Allan stood still, his deep eyes concealing burdens unspoken. Tu Tieu felt herself pressed into a choice: to accept this distance as something inevitable, or to break through it and uncover the truth hidden behind. Trang hesitated, her hands clasping each other tightly, as if to hold on to a fragment of safety in a moment impossible to predict. Sunlight spilled down, bright yet unable to disperse the cold that crept between them. The simple orchard now felt like a stage for silent confrontation, where each was pushed into a corner of their own. The invisible distance could not be measured in steps, nor seen with eyes, but it wrapped the scene in a veil of haze, making every gesture, every glance unbearably heavy. In that moment, they were not only facing each other, but also forced to face themselves, along with the truths they had not yet dared to admit. The late afternoon sun dipped low, spilling gold across the orchard leaves. The silent standoff between the three slowly became a portrait of stark contrasts. Light spreading wide on one side, shadows rising within their hearts on the other. Tu Tieu stared at the space between herself and Allan, where sunlight fell but could not reach. Her heart swayed with unanswered questions, torn between fear and the longing for release. Trang, standing nearby, felt as though she had wandered into two worlds, one stifling in its stillness, the other concealing something yet to be revealed. Allan tilted his head slightly, his eyes deep, reflecting contradictions within him. His shadow stretched long across the ground, as if that darkness itself threatened to eclipse every fragile hope. Tu Tieu drew in a steady breath, fully aware of the battle raging inside, light urging her to move forward, while darkness clung tightly, reminding her of wounds unhealed. Trang noticed the struggle etched across her face, and though anxiety pressed down, there was also a spark of hope that this moment could open a path toward release. Around them, the world stayed hushed, leaving only the pounding of three hearts. Each beat a reminder that sometimes the greatest war is not fought outside, but within the soul of every human being. Time seemed to slow, and silence itself became a turning point. Allan stepped forward once more, no words spoken, yet the weight of the gesture was enough to transform the air. Tu Tieu tilted her head slightly, a flicker of hesitation flashing in her eyes, as though her heart had brushed against a fragile threshold. Trang held her breath, the pressure pressing down so heavily that her clasped hands trembled. No wind stirred, no leaves rustled. Only three figures standing in the fading gold of evening pulled into an invisible spiral. Allan's steps were unhurried, yet each one erased part of the distance that had once stood firm. Tu Tieu felt the invisible string tightening, forcing her toward a choice, to preserve the silence or to break it in pursuit of truth. In that suspended instant, the last light of day spread across her face, where resolve slowly began to replace uncertainty. Trang watched quietly, her heart swelling with both fear and hope, as though she were witnessing the edge of something immense. No one spoke, but the silence itself became the strongest language, carving a path forward. A path from which there would be no return. Dusk slowly descended, casting a muted purple over the orchard. The three figures remained where they stood, yet something had shifted. No longer a vague waiting, but a crossroads unfolding before them. Tu Tieu drew a deep breath and stepped forward half a pace, as though finally accepting the need to face the shadows within her. Trang watched quietly, her eyes carrying a fragile spark of faith, as if she were wagering everything on this moment. Allan stayed still, yet his shoulders trembled faintly, the sign of a burden beginning to fracture. The silence persisted, but their heartbeats seemed to echo, merging with the twilight stretching across the ground. The distance that had once divided them now felt like a fading line, ready to be crossed. Tu Tieu sensed herself poised between two worlds, one bound to the past, scarred and unhealed, the other uncertain yet carrying a glimmer of hope. Trang tightened her grip on the empty basket in her hands, an unspoken symbol of a beginning yet to be filled. Allan lowered his gaze to the earth, leaving a silence tense but laden with possibility. As the last light faded, their three silhouettes merged into the growing darkness, carrying with them truths unspoken and choices unfinished. It was not an ending, but rather the threshold of something new, a place where destiny waited for them to step forward.